The sky hung heavy over Seattle, thick with gray clouds that seemed to press down on the city as if mirroring the weight in every heart that afternoon. Raindrops tapped a soft, relentless rhythm on the black umbrellas gathered at the cemetery. The Collins family had just buried William Collins, a man who, in life, had commanded respect, built an empire, and stood as the unwavering pillar of his family. Now, his absence left an emptiness that echoed through every corner of the mansion he once called home. Margaret Collins, his widow, stood by the graveside, her posture rigid beneath the delicate black lace of her dress. She clutched a handkerchief in her hand, pressing it to her lips in a careful display of grief. Around her, mourners began to drift away, their whispered condolences trailing behind them like the last leaves of autumn. The world seemed to pause, holding its breath as the Collins family prepared to return to the mansion where another kind of reckoning awaited. Inside, the grand living room was quiet, the air thick with anticipation and the lingering smell of rain. Emily Parker, wife to the eldest son, Ryan, felt the silence settle deep into her bones. She sat at Ryan's side, his hand cold in hers, both of them waiting for whatever would come next. The lawyer, a solemn man with tired eyes, stood before the family and unfolded the will with practiced gravity. No one was prepared for what followed. With every word, the room seemed to shrink, the walls closing in as the lawyer announced that nearly the entire estate, millions in assets, the house, the legacy had been left not to Ryan, the eldest, but to Chris, the younger brother. A gasp fluttered through the relatives. Emily felt Ryan stiffen beside her, his shoulders drawn tight with shock and hurt. She squeezed his hand, her voice a soft whisper meant only for him. "We'll be okay. We've built our own life, remember?" And they had a life forged in quiet resilience, in small victories and shared dreams, far from the spotlight of family expectations. They were ready to slip away, to leave the grandeur and the ghosts behind, until Margaret's voice cut through the hush with a sudden, searing demand. Her eyes flashed, sharp with something like entitlement. "From now on, you and Ryan will have to take care of me," she announced, voice rising above the rest. "Your brother may have the money, but I expect the two of you to be responsible for me. That's what a dutiful son and his wife should do." Emily froze. The words stung, not because they were unexpected, but because they revealed so much. Margaret had always favored Chris. At every birthday, every family dinner, Chris had been the golden child, the one who received the gifts, the praise, the gentle laughter. Ryan, by contrast, had been the dependable shadow, the less successful son whose efforts never seemed to measure up. And now, after giving Chris everything, Margaret wanted Ryan and Emily to shoulder the burdens she no longer wished to face alone. Ryan's lips parted, a protest rising in his throat, but Emily spoke before he could find the words. Her voice was calm, but sharp as glass, carrying across the room with quiet authority. "Excuse me, Margaret," she said, rising to her feet. "Let me get this straight. You handed the entire estate to Chris. You trusted him with the wealth, the property, the legacy. Yet now, you expect us, the ones you've ignored and dismissed, to take care of you financially and emotionally?" A ripple of gasps moved through the relatives, some shrinking back, others leaning forward with the hunger of those who'd long waited for someone to speak the truth. Margaret's face flushed. "That's what family does," she retorted, voice trembling with a mix of anger and desperation. "Children take care of their parents." Emily's gaze never wavered. "Family is built on respect, not convenience. You cannot dismiss us for years, then call upon us when it suits you. If Chris is the golden son worthy of the inheritance, then he is also worthy of your care." The words hung in the air heavy, unyielding, refusing to be ignored. Chris, who had been standing quietly by the fireplace, shifted uncomfortably. He looked away, unable to meet his mother's pleading eyes. The silence that followed was deeper than before, a chasm that seemed to open between Margaret and the rest of her family. Margaret's hands shook. She tried to rally, her voice cracking. "You ungrateful girl!" Emily didn't flinch. "Ungrateful? No. Honest. Ryan and I have worked hard for everything we have, and we have done it without expectation of reward. We will take care of ourselves." But your choices have consequences, Margaret. You can't reap loyalty from seeds of favoritism. Ryan finally spoke, his voice steady and clear. Emily's right, Mom. We'll always respect you. But don't expect us to carry a burden you chose to place elsewhere. You made your decision. Now you have to live with it. Margaret's pride, so carefully cultivated over decades, crumbled in front of everyone. Her face, usually so composed, was etched with the sudden realization that her own actions had brought her to this moment alone, exposed, and without the support she believed was hers by right. That evening, word spread quickly among the extended family. Whispers drifted through the halls, across phone lines, and into living rooms. Many said Margaret had been unfair. Some quietly admitted that Emily had spoken the truth no one else had dared to say. Chris, burdened now with both wealth and the responsibility of caring for his mother, looked less triumphant than he ever had before. As the rain continued to fall outside, Emily and Ryan slipped quietly from the mansion. They drove through the city in silence, the windshield wipers keeping time with their thoughts. It wasn't until they reached the edge of the city, where the lights faded and the world grew quiet, that Emily finally spoke. Her voice was soft, threaded with both sorrow and relief. We may not have the mansion or the fortune, but we have our peace. Ryan glanced at her, his eyes shining with gratitude and something deeper, a love built on shared hardship, on understanding, on the quiet courage it takes to stand up for what is right. He squeezed her hand, a small gesture that carried the weight of everything they had endured and everything they had overcome. And that's worth more than anything, he whispered. They drove on, leaving behind the world of inheritance and entitlement, of old wounds and colder expectations. Ahead of them lay the life they had built together, a life not measured in property or privilege, but in the simple, enduring wealth of respect, love, and dignity. In the weeks that followed, the Collins family was forever changed. Margaret, once so certain of her place and her power, found herself alone in the grand halls of the mansion, surrounded by the echoes of her own choices. Chris, burdened with the estate, struggled to reconcile the riches he had been given with the responsibility that now rested on his shoulders. The family gatherings were quieter. The laughter that once filled the rooms now came only in fragments, as old divisions refused to heal overnight. But for Emily and Ryan, life moved forward with a new clarity. They found joy in small things, a shared cup of coffee in the morning, an evening walk in the rain, the knowledge that they had chosen peace over resentment, integrity over bitterness. They were not wealthy by society's standards, but in their hearts, they felt richer than they ever had before. Their story spread quietly, touching those who had watched the drama unfold from a distance. Neighbors, friends, even distant relatives found themselves reflecting on the true meaning of family. Some reached out to mend old wounds, to bridge the gaps that favoritism and pride had created. Others learned, perhaps for the first time, that true wealth has nothing to do with money or inheritance, but everything to do with the way we treat each other, the respect we show, and the love we choose to give. As the seasons changed and the city shook off the last traces of winter, Emily and Ryan continued to walk their path, sometimes in sunlight, sometimes in rain, but always together. They knew that life would bring new challenges, new losses, and new joys, but they faced them with the quiet strength of those who have learned the hardest lesson of all, that dignity and peace are treasures no one can take away. And so, the Collins family's story became a quiet reminder, a lesson whispered in the rain, carried on the wind, and held in the hearts of those willing to listen. Inheritance can divide blood, but respect is what keeps family together. Favoritism may win temporary approval, but in the end, it destroys trust. True wealth isn't found in property, it's found in fairness, love, and dignity. If you've ever felt the sting of favoritism, or found yourself caught between loyalty and truth, remember this story. Reflect on what matters most. Share your thoughts. Below, have you ever faced a moment where you had to choose integrity over expectation? What does family mean to you? Let's keep the conversation going. Your story matters too.